Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 179 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I am your host, Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I am a speaker and author of the book, From Letters to Leaders, Creating Impact on Your College Campus and Beyond. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together and fraternity and sorority leaders together. Fun fact, book number one was such a big success, just like our next guest who's working on her book. I don't want to spill all the beans yet, but Greek University is going to be launching book number 2, is going to be ready for our audience on December 1st. So to all of our loyal podcast listeners, you heard it here first. Nobody else knows about it. So go tell your friends. Now, our next guest lives in Nashville, Tennessee, my home as well. She eats Chick-fil-A like it's her last meal, and she is the biggest nerd with a lot of freaking energy. She's the all-American girl who grew up checking all of society's boxes, only to find herself unfulfilled after all of it. Even after all the awards and praise from others as she attained the cookie-cutter lifestyle, she found herself with a deep yearning and realization that there had to be more to life. So she quit her corporate job, she traveled the world, 12 plus islands, read tons of books, and began her journey of self-development. In this process, she uncovered the voice and light that God had given her, but she was too busy following a checklist to discover any of it. She is still on the path of fully stepping into the woman she was created to be, but she is enjoying every step of the way. Let me tell you, Britt can get you living your best life. Welcome to the show, Britt Tucker.
Yay, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I know, this is so exciting. We're like practically neighbors, and now we're like meeting for the first time. So I'm just so excited. This is going to be unbelievable. We're going to have a lot of fun.
Yes.
So I want to make sure that our college students who are listening right now, that they understand a little bit about your background. You decided on Auburn University for your undergraduate experience. So why was Auburn the right place for you?
I've always been one who wants to do things differently. And I grew up in Georgia. Most people from my high school were going to the University of Georgia. And I said, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be like everyone else. So I went and toured Auburn and just fell in love with the campus. And I always share this story on my visit because, and this is top secret. So if you hear this today, do not share it. But most football stadiums actually leave a gate open year round for maintenance to come and go. And so we were pulling out of the campus, my mom and I saw the gate open and I said, oh my gosh, I have to get out and go into the stadium because I cheered my whole life. And I said, this is perfect. I want to go see what it looks like. And I remember going into the stadium, sneaking into the stadium, and I just stood there and I looked down at the field and I said, this is where I want to be. And so that's how my Auburn journey started.
That is so funny. I mean, here, you could have gone to UGA. Instead, you switched SEC teams. You went to Auburn and you fell in love with the stadium at Auburn. I mean, what are the chances?
It sold. And my sister actually went to University of Georgia. So it can get a little, crazy during football season with the two of us.
I love it. I love that friendly competition. That is awesome. And you were also a cheerleader at Auburn as well. So tell us, what was that experience like? And what is it like juggling both cheerleading and being a student at the same time?
Definitely. I think hands down, one of the best experiences of my life. And I always tell people, if you have a dream in your heart, it's there for a reason. So don't give up on it. And so having that opportunity cheering for an SEC school during football season, there were only 10 of us girls. So we did all sports. We did all appearances throughout the state. I loved it. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. It was, however, a very different college experience. So it's almost like maintaining a job too, because you have workouts and appearances and games. But definitely if anyone's interested, and trying out for a team, I say go for it.
My goodness, only 10 of you for all the sports at Auburn?
Yes.
I mean, your schedule must have been insane.
It was. I always tell people, people talk about these fun stories from college on Friday night, where I went to this party or I did this social, and I was in bed by 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, because I had to be at an appearance the next morning, super early with like alumni and stuff. So definitely different experience, but I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. I loved every minute of it.
Oh, that's good. It all worked out for you, clearly. And then after college, now all of a sudden you find yourself with this deep yearning that there had to be more to life. So now all of a sudden you're quitting your corporate job, you're traveling the world, you're reading books, you're started self-development. How did you know that it was time for you to change things up? And what did you learn on this journey that you went on?
Yeah, I think I always tell people I had this feeling. It was almost like a gut feeling like, okay, Brittany, you checked all the boxes, you got to corporate America. And I said, is this it? Like, I remember waking up and saying, okay, I'm traveling the world, I'm making good money, I've done everything I'm supposed to do, and this is it. And I just had this empty feeling inside of me. And so I said, something has to be done about it. So that's when I quit my job and took a sabbatical and traveled and just said, I'm on this journey to understand who I am as a person, because I had been just following these checklists and expectations of what was around me and what I was told I should be as a woman. And so I always tell people the best way to I don't like to say you're ever lost or finding yourself. I think we're just buried under society and cultural expectations. And so I think the best way to find that is, number one, acknowledging that there's something off. Those deep desires are there for a reason. And then, making a decision to say, hey, I'm going to find out what it is, what it is that I'm supposed to do with my life.
Wow, that is profound. I'm glad that you took that journey. I don't know that everybody would be brave enough to quit their corporate job making great money to do what you did.
Yes.
I mean, that takes a lot of guts, right?
It does. It does. It's funny. I didn't tell my parents for like 4 months that I didn't have a job. I was like so scared at the time. I was like, they're going to be like, Brittany, you have this amazing job. And, but I felt it wasn't right for me. There was a lot with the company that wasn't aligning in who I was and what direction I was going. And, I always tell people always ask that pivotal moment in your life. And mine was literally walking downstairs and saying, I'm done. And I had no resignation letter typed up at all. I had to go home and do that. And I just said, okay, what's next?
Wow, that's amazing. And you're totally right. I think especially Gen Z, the college students that we have today, they are really wanting to be aligned with the company's corporate culture and their values. And if there's a disconnect there with the values of the organization, forget about what you say, because what you say in commercials might be different than what you do in reality.
Right.
And so, if your company is not doing the right thing, then ultimately you're going to have, especially with Gen Z, you're going to have a ton of people that are just going to leave because they're going to say this organization is not in alignment with who I am as a human being. And I think more and more, I really hope that leaders of corporate America are going to really understand this concept if they want to grow and if they want to retain their top talent.
You're exactly right. Yes. Yes.
So your passion now is to help women ditch society's standards, no matter how old they are or what circumstances they're in or what season of life they're in. So how do you recommend that people find what their purpose is and then start to live their best life? How do we do that?
Yeah, I think the timeline is different for everybody. I think like I said, the first thing is to acknowledge that, hey, something's off. Okay. I'm not feeling I'm in alignment with my life. And that's always the biggest step. Okay, to acknowledge it. Secondly, I did a lot of reading. I did a lot of journaling. There are a lot of exercises out there. I kind of go back and forth on the purpose part of it, because sometimes I think there's not just one purpose for our life either. But trying new things, like not being scared to say, hey, like I've always wanted to do this, but maybe my mom or dad told me that wasn't a good, career for me, but I'm going to give it a shot anyways. You never know until you try. Traveling was huge for me. I grew up in a very, very small town, and I was, I like to say it was a bubble. There are a lot of great things that came from my Southern upbringing in a small town, but a lot of things that I was just shielded. I hadn't seen the outside world. And for me, traveling was like, okay, there are a lot of people in the world. There's a lot of cultures in the world. There's a lot of, things I can learn from this. And so traveling solo did so much for me.
Wow. That's awesome. I really hope that students take advantage of those opportunities to go and travel solo, to get to know themselves and to learn other cultures. Again, I think what you did is very brave. I don't know that every student would be thinking the way that you think, but I'm certainly very happy that you did because I think it made all the difference in the world for you.
Yeah, thank you. And I would even say this too. When I did it years ago, it's much different than nowadays. Like there's so many virtual jobs nowadays. Like, why would you not take opportunity of that? Your first few years out of college, like, you don't have a lot of responsibilities at that time. Find some virtual work and go travel the world. People are doing it daily right now.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Now, every student I meet on college campuses today, every single one is super stressed out. They're exhausted. I mean, physically, mentally, every which way, they're just exhausted. The pandemic certainly has contributed to that. So I acknowledge the reason why in most cases. So how can students today decrease the stress that they're under?
Yes, I think a lot of times stress will never go away. Okay. But a lot of times it's self-induced. We tend to be in a yes culture, especially as women. We tend to say yes to everything, right? We don't want that FOMO. We don't want to miss out on things. But I think realigning like what it is, what's important in your life, right? Is it school and this journey you want to go on? Or is it that you need to attend every single social activity through your fraternity or sorority? I think also making a list of what doesn't make you happy and things not to do. So we're always good about making lists on my to-do list, or I like to call it intention list. I don't like the word to do, but we're really good at making these lists, but we're not good at saying, okay, what can I cut out of my life? As far as time management, setting aside daily separate days, right? For, hey, this is my social day, or this is my study time. And if you can get in the routine of saying, hey, every Wednesday morning, I'm going to study between 10 and 12, it's going to make your life so much easier than trying to juggle things. I have to do this for my own business and for my personal life to keep everything managed. But I have certain days I take calls. I have certain days I record, and my mind doesn't have to think 10 times harder to say, when am I going to do this? So I think getting in those better routines would be very beneficial.
I totally agree with you. And I mean, I'm super old school, so I'm going to show you how old school I am. I have a planner with like a monthly planner, all my like appointments and meetings and conference calls and recordings and speaking. It's all in this planner, and it's super old school. I actually have a pen and a piece of paper. And I gotta tell you, without this, I am lost. And I think that is my first word of advice to college students, is exactly what you said in terms of time management, especially the fraternity and sorority leaders that are listening to this podcast right now. They're super busy. They got social events going on. They got community service. They got philanthropy. They have chapter meetings. They also have to be a student. Many of them are working, so they got a job. Maybe they've got a significant other on campus. I mean, there's no way that you can be effective in your time management if you don't have, you can go online for, an online planner. That's totally cool. But have a planner of some sort that you're using to actually track everything that you're doing and see if it makes sense or not, and get some order in your life, because without this, I'm lost. I'm not effective. I'm just telling you.
Yes. I think there's so much power too in writing it down.
I agree.
Studies have shown the more that you write something down, the more you will remember it, the more it'll be ingrained. So I think I'm the same way. I have an old school paper planner as well. So
I'm so glad that we agree totally. I agree with you. When I write something down, then all of a sudden I remember it. If I try to do this online and I'm typing it, there's something about my brain that doesn't retain it. And so by writing it, I feel like I'm much better at keeping on top of all the commitments that I have. So hopefully that is a habit that the college students will take with them, that they'll start now in college and they'll continue on, after they become professionals. It really is really helpful. So that tip alone is gold. Now, goal setting is also something that students don't really often think about until much later in life. So I'm wondering, how can college students engage in goal setting and action lists right now? I know you don't like the to-do list, but how can they get engaged in this goal setting to help them achieve whatever their career goals are after college?
So I think one of the big things around goals and dreams is, first of all, you have a dream, right? And in order for it to happen, it needs to become a goal. And then we need to have a plan and a strategy behind it. I think college students right now, with everything going on, it's hard to, when you're young, to make a decision about what you want to do the rest of your life, in those 4 years. And so I think just just starting to learn yourself and starting to say, hey, well, maybe that's something that I want to be, or I'm interested in, and keeping those goals somewhere written down is going to be beneficial for them. I have an ongoing list of just things I want to achieve in my life on my notes section in my phone, you know, just like, oh, I think I want to do this one day, or I want to do that. But starting to write those down, starting to visualize those, starting to say, hey, how can I get there? What steps will help me get there? This is something I do with a lot of my coaching clients, Michael, is I have them write a letter of who they want to be in the next 5 or 10 years. Very descriptive. Okay. So when we're making decisions, we can go back and say, okay, is this decision in alignment with who I want to be and what goals I want to achieve in life?
Love it. And I think that is exactly the right steps that people should be thinking about, is writing that down, visualizing it. Who do I want to be 5 or 10 years from now? And then hopefully finding a mentor maybe that helps them get there,
Yes.
because there are other people out there doing whatever it is that you want to do 5 or 10 years from now.
Oh
You know,
gosh,
if you
yes.
want to be a speaker and you want to be just killing it on stage, you know, all over the country, then I would say to you, go out and find somebody that's doing that today, and then have them mentor you and show you all the things that you need to do in order to actualize that dream. And they'll list it out for you. They'll say, you need X, Y, Z. And, you know, and if you just have daily conversations and just, you know, daily actually going out and doing those things, then ultimately 5 or 10 years from now, you will reach your goal. There's no question in my mind. But I don't think enough people are writing it down in terms of who they want to be 5 or 10 years from now, and then finding the mentor that is actually going to help them achieve that. So I think those two pieces are just critical for achieving your goals. So
I love the mentor part too.
Yeah.
I love that you touched on that. I think we can never become the best version of ourselves by ourselves, right? So having people pour into you, being intentional about that is huge. I wish someone would have told me that when I was in college.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And you know what? In the fraternity and sorority system, embedded are all kinds of alumni that are in the organization that are there to help you. I mean, you literally, if you're part of a national fraternity or sorority, you literally have hundreds of thousands of other members that are out there doing what it is that you want to do. Just reach out. And as a college student, you have so much power. You have no idea how much power you have. Because if Britt or I get a message on LinkedIn from a college student saying that they just need 15 minutes of our time to understand what we do for a living, I mean, we are going to respond in a positive fashion, because we know that college student is not trying to sell us anything. They just want to be better, right? They just want to learn something. And so every executive in America would respond yes to that college student if you reached out to them on LinkedIn and asked for 15 minutes of their time, being very specific in what it is that you want, and, you know, maybe some questions that you want to ask them, and just give them a heads up and say, these are the 5 things that I want to know, and these are the 5 things we'll talk about over that 15-minute, you know, time. And give them some time to think about it, you know, understand that they're probably busy, so they need to schedule you out maybe a week or two in order to find the time to do it. But I'm telling you, the college students, we will say yes 99% of the time.
Yes, you are right. You're definitely right.
Oh, that's great. And, you know, the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about is that many people will decide to go the safe route. Maybe they want to stay in corporate America, or, you know, as opposed to becoming an entrepreneur, because staying in corporate America is safe. A steady paycheck, health insurance, right? All of the things that we associate with safety. And going out and being an entrepreneur is risky. You don't have a steady paycheck. Maybe you have to figure out what to do for your health insurance and other things. So how do you overcome your fear as an entrepreneur and then suddenly start to dream bigger for yourself?
Yes, I think, you know, I always say corporate is made for some people, and for some people it's not, and it's okay. There's not a right or wrong decision at all. Wanting to be an entrepreneur is, I always say it's not easy, but life is not easy, right? And so you've got to look at the reward at the end. Fear is something that will always be there. It's never going away. So the best way that I learned to deal with fear was to accept it, to acknowledge it, to name it, and say, okay, Britt, it's not going anywhere. Like, just invite it along. You know, there's a book called Big Magic. I think it's Elizabeth Gilbert. And she talks about fear, and she says, we just invite it along for the ride, because, you know, just go ahead and welcome it. And once you can get used to the fact that I believe our best life lives on the other side of fear. So if I look back at my life and I say the greatest milestones I've had or experiences and happiness have come from me being scared. I mean, like that's never going to go away. Like I'm still scared, sometimes. And, but I think just saying, hey, what is the reward at the end of this? I also say this too, Michael. I never fail. So either I win or I learn. And I think if you can look at life that way, it doesn't become so scary. Another exercise I would recommend doing is I always write down what is the worst thing that could go wrong here. Right. And a lot of times it's not even bad at all. We just write it out and get it out of our brain. We're like, okay, it's not really that bad. And so walking yourself through those steps is very, very beneficial.
Great points. I love the part about, either we win or we learn. There's not really, anything bad necessarily happening if you make a mistake. I think college students today are so terrified of making a mistake, but meanwhile, I've made a million mistakes. Okay.
Yes. Yes, we all have.
And because of that, I think I will succeed, right? And so ultimately, I agree with you. I think if I look back at what I've accomplished over, this career, certainly people look at, hey, you were the executive director and CEO of your fraternity that had over 100,000 members. That's a big achievement.
Yes.
And I learned a lot in that process. And ultimately, it enabled me to take the next step, which is now having this speaker bureau of 18 speakers to go out and address all of the problems in fraternity and sorority life, not just for my own organization, but for every fraternity and sorority in the country. So that was a stepping stone to another big thing. But then, of course, there's this fear of, am I going to fail on stage, right? Am I just going to literally fall flat on my face? And so I had to overcome that fear in order to take, the next big step. So I guess my advice is, just do something that scares you every single day.
I like that. I like that.
I mean, just do it. I mean, yeah, is it scary? Sure, it's scary. Britt's done a million things that are scary. Going out and traveling solo can be a scary thing. Like, what's going to happen, right? But you embraced it. And I think if you do that little by little, you do something that scares you every day, then maybe some of those bigger leaps don't seem quite so scary.
You're right. You just get used to it, right? At that point.
Yeah, at that point, you're like, well, I do scary things every day. So what? I conquered that, and I'll conquer this as well. So I love it. And you also have a book deal. I know you're planning a book release in 2022. So tell our audience a little bit more about the book that you're writing and what direction do you plan to go with this particular project?
Yes. So first of all, anyone who's ever written a book or who wants to write a book, I just give you kudos. You get the gold ribbon because I did not know what I was getting myself into. But basically the book is on my story. It's just giving women permission to say, hey, I don't have to go the perfect route, just life lessons I've learned along the way. I think, anything that I can take and have someone not repeat that I did wrong, I think is a good thing to share with the world. So fingers crossed we get that done. If it's not done in 2022, it'll be 2023.
I love it. I know it's going to be a huge hit. I can't wait to buy the book. So you're going to have to let me know as soon as it hits Amazon or wherever you're going to be selling it. I think you're going to make it. And I think ultimately, after publishing the first book, number one, it became easier to write book number two.
Sure, yes.
Because you're like, all right, I understand the process now much better, because going into it, if you've never done it, how do you know what's involved? You don't. You just think it's a great idea, but then you get into it and you're like, oh, this is harder than I thought it would be. And so it becomes easier to write going forward. And then you kind of recognize the mistakes that you made, things that you would have changed about book number one. And then in book number two, you can kind of correct those things and make it even better. So I do think it gets easier over time, the more that you write. But I think everybody has a story to tell. And I think if you look at, individuals who have reached great heights, if you look at companies that have reached great heights, the reason why they've been able to get there is because they became masters at storytelling. And so if you want to be a disruptor in life, personally, or your organization, you have to learn how to tell your story. And everybody's got a story. That's the beauty of it.
Yes.
But you have to work on it. You got to craft it. And I would encourage other people to learn how to tell your story. And that takes practice and time.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, I'm with you. Everybody has a story to tell. Everyone.
100%. Yeah, it's in everybody. People always wonder, they're like, well, wow, you wrote a book or you're a public speaker.
Mhm.
I could never do that. I'm like, sure you can. Of course
Yes,
you
of
can.
course.
I'm like, I guarantee you, I can ask you a few questions, and in 5 minutes, I guarantee you, I will get your
Mhm.
story out. And you're going to be
Mhm.
shocked at just how compelling it is. But it's inside all of us. The question is, can we get it? Can we reach in and
Mhm.
grab it and then say, this is the value that you have in telling your story to other people. This is how you're going to move people. This is how you're going to motivate people. This is how you're going to let people see the world from your
Mhm.
lens that's going to help them move forward in their lives. So
Exactly.
it's in everybody, 100%. So this has been really, really fun. And the other great thing is, because I live in Franklin, Tennessee, you're in Nashville, Tennessee,
Mhm.
I think that we have the ability to go out for lunch at some point. So,
Yes.
and I love good food. I am like the biggest
Mhm.
foodie out there. So because we're going to go to lunch at some point, I need to know where you think we should go to lunch. So what's your favorite restaurant in Nashville these days?
Oh gosh. So I'm in Germantown,
All right.
which happens to be the neighborhood with the best restaurants in Nashville. So there's never a shortage around here. I'm a big Red Bicycle fan.
Ah.
I love their matcha. I do not drink coffee. I'm a matcha drinker, but they have great breakfast tacos, sandwiches. So I definitely recommend that first, if not Mother's Ruin.
Love it. Absolutely love it. All right. So now I know where we're going. It sounds like we're going to do a little breakfast
Let's do
spot
it.
and we're going to make this happen. Those are some great recommendations. And you're right. In Germantown, oh my goodness. I mean, there are so many good restaurants that are just phenomenal in your area. So I'm jealous because you can literally walk to them and I can't.
Yes, yeah, it's dangerous though.
It's so dangerous. I'm going to be
Yeah.
like 500 pounds. It's not good.
Mhm.
Anyway, maybe it's good that I'm in Franklin and not Germantown.
Yeah.
All right, so this has been so much fun. If our listeners, if they want to book you to speak on their campus, or
Mhm.
maybe they just want to connect with you as a
Mhm.
coach, where should they go?
Yeah, so I actually live on Instagram. So my Instagram handle is Brighter with Britt. So it's like shine brighter. It's Britt, two T's. You can also email me. It's just Brittany@brighterwithbritt.com. And one of my interns will definitely get back with you.
That is fantastic. Thank you so much for spending time with us. If
Thank
you're
you.
listening to this, please like it. Please share it with other college students, other people that need to be brighter with Britt. And we so appreciate your time, Britt. This has been amazing. I can't wait to connect with you in person real soon.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it.
Hey, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much to our listeners for joining us. And we hope to see you on another episode of Fraternity Foodie. Thanks so much. Bye for now.